It's the match day preview. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. Welcome, Forge FC and Cavalry FC going head-to-head. One of the OG Canadian Premier League rivalries, having met back-to-back Canadian Premier League championship matches, both won by Forge. 9 o'clock, Wednesday, in Alberta. Forge FC trying to build off of what's been a nice little run. They've won 3 in a row after losing 2 in a row. And not only have Forge won 3 in a row, it's been in dominating fashion. They've outscored their opponents 10-2 in the last 3 matches. That's against Valor, that's against Edmonton, and that's against York. Cavalry going in the opposite direction. It wasn't that long ago where we saw Cavalry at the top of the table. No longer the case. Forge now just 2 points back of Cavalry. We'll look at the standings closer in a second. Cavalry, though, they're 2 losses in a row. They've been outscored 4-0, and one of those matches were at home against York United. So Cavalry struggling a bit, just 1 win in their last 5 games overall. They have a pair of ties mixed in there as well. Head-to-head, though, leans in Cavalry's favor. They've met once this season. It was early. It was a 2-2 draw at Tim Hortons Field. Forge, a couple of highlight reel goals in that match for Forge FC from Schwanier and Hojab Rapport, but it was a match that ultimately did not go Forge's way, and that's been a theme between these 2 clubs. I mentioned Forge won back-to-back Canadian Premier League titles against Cavalry. Since then, though, it's been all Cavalry. They've won 3 in a row against Forge. Or rather, I should say Forge has gone 3 matches without winning against Cavalry. Most recent, as I mentioned, 2-2 draw earlier this season. Last time they met, prior to that one, November 16th, Cavalry won 1-0 at Tim Hortons Field. And then again at Tim Hortons Field, Forge losing. That was July 22nd of last year. So the last time Forge has beaten Cavalry was July 8th, 2021. And that was in Alberta. So Forge looking to get back on the winning side against Cavalry. Now, we are going to be joined shortly by Todd Saelhoff, who's the sports editor at the Calgary Sun and Calgary Herald, and he covers Cavalry FC for the news outlets out there. And we'll talk to him, and we'll get some insight into the opponents, into the enemies, into the bad guys, Cavalry FC. Before we do that, let's jump into some advanced stats. You know, I'm a stats guy, and I mean, this one promises to be regardless how you look at this matchup, whether it's on the table, whether it's through the stats, this should be a good one. And if you look at the numbers, this should be a championship preview. You have the 2 best clubs in the league when it comes to expected goals against. So 2 of the best defensive clubs in the league. Forge 1, Cavalry 3 when it comes to expected goals per match. So Forge leads the league, Cavalry in 3rd. Touches in the opponent's box, Forge 1, Cavalry 2. The 2 best expected goals in open play. So that's not set pieces, that's not penalties. In open play, Forge 1, Cavalry 2. So you're getting a theme here. Here's what's interesting, though, and maybe we'll talk to Todd about this. Cavalry is last in the league in successful 1v1s and through balls. I don't know what to make of that. I'm going to be honest with you. I can pretend to be the expert, but I don't know what to make of that. Cavalry is not a team that's going to take and win a lot of one-on-ones, and it's going to especially be difficult against Forge FC because Forge is the best club in the league when it comes to successful tackles. And I mean, we see who Forge has, especially on defense, whether it's Urciuoli Janssen there, whether it's been Matusala, whether it's been Malik, whether it's been the fullbacks, whether it's been Ashton Morgan or Rama. I mean, Rama, he single-handedly may be the reason why Forge has so many successful tackles. Becker's a guy that wins a lot of his Hojab Rapport. So many guys that are so good at defending 1v1. That bodes well for Forge and doesn't bode so well for Cavalry, who have had to rely on set-piece goals this season and penalties. So that could be an interesting storyline to follow in this one. Also, Forge leads the league in blocks in the box. So not only are they good defensively, not only are they good at winning tackles, Um, they're not letting many shots get through. And as you know, they don't give up many opportunities. And when clubs do take their chances, and maybe it's a matter of knowing they're playing Forge and maybe saying, hey, let's just take what they're giving us. Forge able to close space and block a lot of shots this year. And of course, my favorite stat of all that's been a running theme this year, Forge as a recovery team. Someone brought it up to me the other day, and so I'm going to repeat it in case you think the numbers have changed at all. They haven't. Forge is the best recovery team in the Canadian Premier League by a wide margin. What I mean by that is when Forge loses possession, and this is an actual stat that is tracked for the Canadian Premier League, when Forge loses possession, they regain possession within 6 seconds almost 46% of the time. Nearly half the time Forge loses possession, they get it back almost immediately. That's an unbelievable stat. And that is why this club is so difficult to play against. So we know all about Forge. Let's learn a little more about Cavalry FC. And we are now joined by Todd Saelhoff, the sports editor with the Calgary Sun and the Calgary Herald, and he covers Cavalry FC, the most hated team in Hamilton. Todd, welcome. And I'm not. Is it reciprocated? Is Forge a hated club in Calgary?
You know it, Anthony. It is absolutely reciprocated in Calgary, and why not? I mean, when you look at the history that these teams have going right back to their first battle together very early in the inaugural season, there's no reason why these two teams just can't not despise each other. They just there's it's lovely, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's still a fairly new league. I mean, especially when you factor in the two kind of COVID seasons in there. So we're in our little bubble here in Hamilton and with Forge fans. What is the let's call it the environment, the the atmosphere out there with Cavalry and the fan base?
Fan base is pretty rabid out here in terms of. I mean, there's lots of competition for the sporting dollar in Calgary when you've got the Stampeders and the Flames and the Roughnecks and a couple of other entities that are out here that make it force Calgarians to make decisions on what they want to do. But you get the soccer people, you get the footy people, you get the football people who want to come out and support a team, and they're loving the fact that this CPL is now here and that Cavalry is here and that Cavalry's had success over the years. And one of the reasons for that kind of success is attributed to this rivalry with Forge, because it just makes it all that much more fun.
Yeah, and there was a run there. I mean, I have it written down here where Cavalry had gone. Was it a 12-game unbeaten streak? It's now, and it looked like, I mean, they were firmly in first place. It was early in the year, but it looked like Cavalry was a team to beat. And one little stumble, and all of a sudden they drop down to third. And I guess that's the nature of a 8-team league when you play everyone three times and you have these 6-point swings. But what's happened in the last couple of weeks with Cavalry?
Well, and it's it's kind of funny. I mean, yeah, they went on this 11-game win streak. They bring York into town, and York hasn't been easy for them, and that's just well, it's just the way it's been. Whether it's Martin Nash because he's a former assistant coach with Cavalry, taking his game there and knowing exactly what Tommy Wheeldon Jr. is going to throw at him, I don't know. But they park the bus and they don't allow Cavalry to do very much. And last game, Cavalry dominated. The last more than the last half of the second half. They were 11 to 10 men on York, and nothing would go in. They had no finish. In fact, that was the problem, was they didn't have the finish. Now that's been something over the years. I think you can say that Cavalry is often at times when it comes to the clutch games, the finish isn't there. They haven't had the guys going back to the championship game against Forge that first year. They haven't had the finishers. That hasn't been the case this year. They've had a run of finishers, whether it's Arab and Peppel, whether it's Jose Escalante, whether it's Ali Musi, Meyer Bevan has been there, Joe Mason at the beginning of the year. All those guys have been finished, and they've been fantastic strikers and doing their job. That game just didn't happen for them for some reason, and he kind of threw the game out as like, okay, you dominated, didn't happen, didn't work for you. And then they turn around and go 3 nights later there in Pacific, which is not an easy place to play. They're the defending champions. That's the rivalry on the western part of Canada, is Cavalry versus Pacific. That's grown into a pretty tension-filled rivalry, and they you knew it was going to be a tough game simply because of the turnaround, and Pacific had been there a week waiting to prepare for them. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Cavalry. I don't think anything except just 2 games that didn't go their way, a schedule that maybe didn't go their way, but they have to own it, and they are owning it. They know that the schedule's going to get tough here, and I imagine it is for Forge too. When I look at the standings and I see 14 games played, and everybody else is
Yeah.
15, 16 plus.
Yeah. Actually, talk about Peppel, because the 19-year-old, it looks like, and I think Calvary's confirmed now the move to England, which is a big loss for Calvary, but also this is kind of the nature of the league. It's young Canadian talent getting opportunities that otherwise maybe they wouldn't, and this looks like one of those examples.
Yeah, it was funny. The very first thing he said when he finally scored his first goal about what would have been about a month and a half ago was I tend to start slow, and then when I find the first one, the floodgates open. And you hear that from a lot of players, and you think, okay. I mean, guys like to say that. Maybe it's a confidence thing. I don't know, but you hear that from more often than not.
Mhm.
He scores the next game, scores the next game, scores the next game, scores 2 more. So you got 6 goals in 5 games, and suddenly you've got a 19-year-old playing, in a domestic league here in Canada, who people are hot after, and it's just like that. It just turns around. It's like 6 week period or 4 week period, and he's finding himself now, getting the transfer call, and they had that they had that happen to Victor Lattori, a midfielder, just before that, and another young guy from this organization who isn't as dynamic, at least not from what Peppel did in that short span of time. It's impressive. They can't afford to lose those guys all the time, but it sure looks good on Cavalry, and it looks good on the CPL when stuff like that happens.
A big advantage for Forge coming into the league was that they had a feeder system of sorts, maybe not officially, but with Sigma FC and Bobby Smirniotis and his connection to the club in Mississauga and the academy he set up there. And Calvary has something set up similarly with Foothills, I believe. Maybe just give us an idea of that relationship and how it impacts Calvary.
Well, and Tommy even talked about it today. I said, why? I asked him why there was so much fuel between these two clubs. Well, where's this rivalry coming from, and why is it always entertaining games? And there's fireworks. And he said it's just mutual respect for one another, born out of the fact that both these organizations do have these feeder systems. It's pretty much the same. It's the coach and the feeder system, the same coach getting up to the CPL level and then bringing the guys along with him. And these guys have all got familiarity. And
Mhm.
that's right out of that's what made these two teams so successful right off the hop. You come into a brand new league. It's grassroots in terms of we're starting from fresh from day one. Nobody knows who's better than anybody. But the fact that these guys on Cavalry and these guys who are on Foothills FC and these guys, who are in the Sigma system that went up to Forge, obviously they have familiarity, and it just made them successful. I'm not sure you can say much more than that there was so much familiarity that made these teams both successful.
Yeah. What's been, Edmonton is obviously in a much different place than Calvary and Forge for that matter. Has the Battle of Alberta not quite been there because Edmonton is just in a completely different? Yeah, I see the face you're making, so I think
Yeah,
that pretty much sums it up.
and I feel bad for Edmonton, for
Yeah.
FC Edmonton. I'm actually from Edmonton, so that's and being in Calgary, you hear that a lot. Well, how can you be from Edmonton? You're in Calgary. It is what it is. You go where you go, but
Mhm.
I feel bad for Edmonton because that organization or entities of that organization, uh, they they kind of kept professional football afloat in Canada for a long time
Mhm.
when nobody else was around doing anything. And they've been there the whole time. Them, and at a higher level, Vancouver and Toronto, and Montreal. But Edmonton kind of helped kind of keep a thread alive for I think for fans, hope alive before this this league came in. And if they don't continue on, that's going to be sad, because they've paid the price probably for hanging on for so long that it just there just hasn't been the cohesion there. There just hasn't been the chemistry there.
Yeah, that's too bad. And I get, Forge and York was supposed to be the big rivalry, and York hasn't quite been. York, they've had some bad luck this season, but they've been near the bottom of the table too, so that rivalry hasn't quite been there. So for now, we'll enjoy the Forge and Calvary one. Todd, thanks so much for doing this. It was great. Nice to get some insight into what's going on elsewhere in the league, and I hope we can talk to you again.
Yeah, great stuff, Anthony. I appreciate it, and should be a good one tomorrow night. I don't remember a game when it wasn't between these two.
All right, now we know a little more, actually a lot more, about the opponents, Cavalry FC. We can't end this broadcast without talking about Woobens Pacius. Not only has he just skyrocketed and thrown himself into the goal-scoring race behind Diaz, he has 8 goals in 14 appearances. Here's the difference, though. Diaz leads the league with 11 goals, and he's been fantastic this year. He's played 1,366 minutes this season. Pacius has played just over 800. You talk about efficiency. And part of this, we've talked about this before, but the cost of playing on a good club is that you're surrounded by good players. And there's only one ball to go around and only so many minutes to go around. But for a guy to be number 2 in league scoring, playing just over 800 minutes, again, Diaz has played over 1,300, almost 14. Dyer, who's behind Pacius, he's a goal back, has played over 1,200 minutes. Pacius has played 8. Pacius has played the full 90 minutes just 3 times this season. He has 5 goals in his last 3 matches, 6 goals in his last 5 matches that he's played in. He's on a roll, and he is going to be a huge piece of this club going down the stretch. And if they have championship hopes, Pacius is a guy they are going to look to. All right. Everything is set. Everything's good to go. Quick look at the table ahead of the Calvary Forge match. Calvary in 3rd place with 28 points. Forge in 4th place with 26 points. Forge, though, have played 2 less matches. With a win, Forge will go ahead of Calvary and still have those 2 matches in hand. If these are the top 2 clubs in the league, and it looks like they are, at least for right now, and we're just about at the midway point, if that is the case, home field advantage throughout the postseason can be secured by finishing first. Forge 3 points out of first place behind Atletico with 2 matches in hand. And they have 3 in hand on Pacific, who's also tied for first with Atletico. So Forge is in control of their own destiny here. I mean, who does not want championship soccer being played at Tim Hortons Field this year in much better weather? You assume, because it won't be played as late into the year in December like it was last season. All right, everything's set. Enjoy the match. Calvary Forge, 9 o'clock Wednesday night out in Alberta. We will talk to you soon.
We are the Forge, the mighty, mighty Forge. You just don't think you understand.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.